Welcome to my channel, the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The cargo ship Ridgewalker rattled like a dying animal, its fusion core coughing through the void with the wet, grinding sound of machinery too old to trust. Ethan Vale gripped the metal railing until his knuckles went white, staring through a scratched viewport into the absolute black beyond. No stars out here, just dark, just distance. He'd bought a one-way ticket with the last of his military severance pay. Didn't matter where it went. Didn't matter that the ship smelled like rust and leaked coolant through the deck plates. What mattered was putting distance between himself and the memory. The recon craft screaming through atmosphere. Hull plates peeling away like burning skin. Connor's voice over comms, sharp with panic. "I'm stuck. Harness won't release." Ethan's hands on his own restraints, fingers shaking. The escape pod light blinking green. 5 seconds. 4. "Go!" Connor shouted. "Ethan, go! I can get you. There's no time." 3 seconds. The cockpit window cracking from heat stress. Connor's face visible through the spiderweb fractures. Eyes wide, not with fear, but with something worse. Acceptance. 2 seconds. Connor's hand slamming the emergency release on Ethan's pod, forcing him out. The last thing Ethan saw was Connor's mouth forming words he couldn't hear as the pod ejected and the ship became a fireball against the planet's curve. The sound of it. Metal tearing, air igniting, a friend dying. That was the sound Ethan heard every night when he tried to sleep. He pressed his forehead against the cold viewport. The tribunal called it survival instinct, called it acceptable losses during high-risk extraction, gave him an honorable discharge and a handshake that felt like a slap. Connor's family didn't even look at him at the funeral. Ethan pressed his forehead against the cold viewport. The Ridgewalker would dump him at some frontier station in 3 weeks, and he'd disappear into the kind of work that didn't ask questions. Mining, waste reclamation, whatever kept his hands busy and his brain quiet. Behind him, voices rose in the cargo bay. Rough, aggressive, the kind that meant trouble. He should have ignored it. Should have stayed exactly where he was, staring into nothing. Instead, he turned. 3 cargo handlers had cornered someone against a stack of supply crates. Big men, the kind who'd spent too many months in deep space with nothing to do but lift containers and nurse grudges. The figure between them was small, slight, hunched in a thermal coat too big for her frame. "Come on, snow rat," one of them drawled, leaning in close. "Show us your teeth. Heard you frost-grave freaks got sharp ones." The girl didn't move, just sat there on the deck, perfectly still, one hand resting on something at her belt. Her skin was blue, not metaphorically, actually blue, like ice over deep water. A dozen thin white scars crisscrossed her bare forearms where her sleeves had ridden up. "Maybe she's too cold to talk," another handler laughed. "Need someone to warm you up, sweetheart?" The third one reached for her shoulder. Ethan moved before the thought finished forming. His elbow caught the reaching man square in the temple, a sharp, efficient strike that sent him stumbling into a bulkhead with a wet crack. The second handler turned just in time to take Ethan's knee in his gut, folding with a sound like a punctured bladder. The third backed away fast, hands up, eyes wide. "Damn, man, we were just talking." "Leave," Ethan said, flat, final. They left, dragging their semi-conscious friend between them, muttering threats that faded down the corridor. Ethan turned to the girl. She rose slowly, uncoiling like something predatory. Up close, he could see her eyes. Pale gray, almost colorless, with pupils that contracted to vertical slits in the dim cargo bay light. She was maybe 20, maybe younger. Hard to tell with the cold world adaptations. Her hand still rested on the hunting knife at her belt, fingers loose but ready. "You all right?" Ethan asked. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and placed one hand on his shoulder. Her palm was ice cold even through his shirt, cold enough that he felt it in his bones. Her voice came out like frozen steam, barely above a whisper. "Wrong direction." She walked past him without another word, moving with the fluid economy of someone who'd learned to conserve every calorie in sub-zero temperatures. Didn't look back, didn't thank him, just disappeared through a maintenance hatch like smoke. Ethan stood there confused, adrenaline still singing in his veins. Wrong direction? Wrong direction from what? He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. He found her 6 hours later in one of the common bays, sitting alone in a corner with her back to the wall and a clear view of both exits. Smart. The kind of positioning you learned when being cornered meant being dead. She was eating something from a foil pouch, methodical and slow, chewing each bite like it might be her last meal for a while. Her eyes tracked him the moment he entered, but she didn't acknowledge him otherwise. Ethan grabbed a ration pack from the dispenser and sat down 3 tables away. Not too close, not threatening. They sat in silence for 5 minutes. Then he spoke, keeping his voice low. "I was trying to help." She didn't look at him. "Your help is an insult. On Frostgrave 9, pity gets you killed first." "I wasn't pitying you." "Then what?" Now she looked at him, those pale eyes cutting. "You saw someone small and thought they needed saving? I saw 3 men hassling someone outnumbered. I had a knife. They had fists. Math favors me." She set down her ration pouch with precision. "We don't save people who can save themselves." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. "Nobody should have to be alone. I am a hunter. I walk alone." Her gaze dropped to his left wrist, where his sleeve had ridden up to expose the burn scar. Shiny tissue, still pink. Recent. Her voice changed, became a blade. "You saved others, but you didn't save yourself." The air left Ethan's lungs. "I can smell burn accelerant. See the guilt in how you hold your hands." She tilted her head. "Someone didn't make it out, and now you're running to the edge of space on a dying ship." Ethan stood, chair screeching, his heart hammered. She just watched him, calm. "Wrong direction," she said. "You're running away, not toward. You don't know anything about me. I know survivors, the ones who live because they were strong, and the ones who live because someone else was weak." She picked up her ration pouch again. "You're the second kind. That's why you can't look at yourself." His throat closed. No words came. He turned and left, her voice following like a ghost. "Running won't make it stop." The explosion came 3 days later at 0400 hours, when most of the crew was asleep. Ethan was lying in his bunk, staring at the underside of the upper rack, when the entire ship lurched sideways with a sound like metal tearing. Emergency sirens screamed to life. Red lights strobed through the corridors. Someone was shouting over the intercom, but the words were garbled, drowned in static and the groan of buckling hull plates. He rolled out of his bunk and hit the deck running, barefoot, wearing only his undershirt and pants. The corridor tilted at a sickening angle. Gravity fluctuated, too heavy, then too light, then spinning like the ship was tumbling. Engine block, he thought. Something blew in the engine block. He grabbed a handhold and pulled himself toward the nearest emergency station, fighting against the ship's death roll. Other passengers stumbled past him, screaming, bleeding, clutching broken limbs. The air smelled like ozone and burning insulation. A secondary explosion rocked the Ridgewalker, and suddenly Ethan was weightless, floating in a chaos of loose objects and screaming people. His shoulder slammed into a bulkhead. Pain lanced through his collarbone. Then gravity returned all at once. He hit the deck hard enough to see stars, rolled, came up against someone else. Blue skin, gray eyes, already moving with purpose. Ryan. She grabbed his collar and hauled him toward an emergency locker, her grip like iron despite her size. "Pressure suit," she snapped. "Hull breach in 30 seconds. "How do you?" "Because I can hear it. Move." They shoved themselves into emergency suits just as the hull tore open 3 sections down, and the entire corridor vented into space with a roar like the end of the world. The emergency bulkhead slammed shut half a second later, cutting off the sound. Ethan's ears popped. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely seal his helmet. Ryan's voice came through his suit radio, calm as ice. "Navigation bay. We need to know where we're going." "Going?" Ethan's voice sounded distant in his own ears. "We're dead. The ship is falling. There's a difference. Move." They pulled themselves through tilting corridors, past bodies and wreckage and sparking control panels. The Ridgewalker was breaking apart in slow motion, shedding hull plates and cargo containers like a molting insect. Through a shattered viewport, Ethan caught a glimpse of something massive and white below them, filling the view. A planet. Ice. Endless ice. They reached the navigation bay to find it already half collapsed, the main console shattered, but one emergency screen still flickered with data. Ryan pulled herself to it and read the display with those pale, unblinking eyes. Frostgrave 9, she said quietly. Eternal Storm region. Your home world? No. Her voice was absolutely flat. My homeworld is the equatorial zone. Habitable. This, she pointed at the screen. This is the killing ground. Negative 100 degrees Celsius. Windstorms that strip flesh from bone. Nothing survives here. Not even us. So we're dead. She looked at him. Probably. The ship screamed as it hit atmosphere. The impact was a hammer made of physics and hate. Ethan remembered tumbling, the crash webbing cutting into his chest. Ryan's hand locked around his wrist like a vice. He remembered the sound, metal tearing, ice shattering, the whole world turning into a single sustained roar of destruction. Then nothing. He woke up to cold, not normal cold, not Earth cold or station cold, or even deep space cold. This was cold that hurt, that reached through his emergency suit and wrapped around his bones like claws. Cold that made his teeth ache, and his eyes water, and his lungs seize with every breath. He was lying on his side in a snowdrift. His helmet display showed external temperature. Negative 82 degrees Celsius. He tried to move and pain exploded through his ribs. Cracked, maybe broken. His left leg felt wrong. Not broken, but twisted. Ligaments stretched past their limits. Around him, the wreckage of the Ridgewalker was scattered across a plain of blue-white ice that stretched to the horizon. The ship had broken into at least 3 large pieces, trailing debris for kilometers. The sky above was a weird, bruised purple, and the wind howled with a sound like knives scraping glass. A figure moved through the wreckage 20 meters away. Ryan. She was out of her pressure suit, wearing only her thermal coat and cargo pants, moving through the freezing hell like it was a spring day. She crouched beside a twisted piece of hull, examining something, then moved on. Ethan forced himself to his feet. Every movement was agony. He stumbled toward her through knee-deep snow, boots crunching on ice that glittered like broken diamonds. She turned at his approach. 4 survivors, you, me, 2 crew. Out of 40? Out of 40. She gestured toward wreckage 50 meters north. The others are setting up shelter. We need supplies before the real storm hits. Real storm? This is just wind. She looked up at the bruised sky. The killing storm comes at nightfall. We have maybe 4 hours. They picked through the debris field together. Most of it was twisted metal and shattered equipment, useless. But Ryan moved with purpose, pulling emergency rations from a crumpled cargo container, a heat cell from under a collapsed bulkhead. Then she stopped. A body was pinned under a section of hull plating. Female, maybe 30, eyes open and frozen solid. Ice crystals had formed on her eyelashes. Ethan knelt beside her, checking for a pulse he knew wouldn't be there. Don't, Ryan said quietly. She might. She's been dead for an hour. Core temp is 40 degrees. There's no bringing her back. Ryan's voice was flat. Take her thermal gear. She doesn't need it. Ethan stared at her. We're not stripping a corpse. Yes, we are. Because that gear might keep you alive tonight, and she's past caring. Ryan crouched and started unfastening the woman's coat with efficient practice movements. This is Frostgrave. The dead serve the living. Always have. Ethan's hands shook as he helped. The coat was stiff with frost, and pulling it off the frozen body felt like a violation. But Ryan was right. They needed it. A sound cut through the wind. Sharp, metallic, like something heavy shifting in the wreckage. They both froze. What was that? Ethan whispered. Ryan's hand went to her knife. Her eyes scanned the debris field. Could be hull sections settling. Could be... Another sound. Closer. A grinding scrape of metal on ice. Something's moving, Ethan said. Ryan stood slowly, every muscle tense. Or someone. Another survivor, maybe. They waited, listening. The wind howled. The purple sky darkened. And somewhere in the maze of twisted metal, something was definitely moving. Then they saw it. Not a survivor. A section of hull, massive and unstable, teetering on the edge of a debris pile. The wind was pushing it, slowly tipping it toward them like a falling building. Run! Ryan shouted. They sprinted as the hull section toppled with a shriek of tearing metal. It crashed down exactly where they'd been standing, sending up a plume of ice and snow. Ethan stumbled, his boot breaking through a thin crust of ice. For a heart-stopping moment, he felt nothing beneath him, just air, and the promise of a fall into some hidden crevasse. He dropped to one knee, the ice groaning under his weight. Ryan's hand shot out, grabbed his jacket, yanked him back onto solid ground. "Don't rush," she hissed. "Frostgrave tests your weight with every step. The ice remembers where you failed." Ethan's heart hammered. He looked down at the spot where he'd nearly fallen through. The crack was barely visible, a hairline fracture in blue ice, but beneath it, darkness. "How deep?" he asked. "Deep enough." She pulled him to his feet. "Walk where I walk. Step where I step. Understand?" He nodded, shaken. As they worked, something in the distance caught Ethan's eye. A section of hull still burning despite the cold. Black smoke rising into the purple sky. "Wait," he said. "There might be supplies in there. That section's unstable. It'll collapse any second. But if there's medical equipment, water filtration, then it's already gone." Ryan grabbed his arm. "Don't do this. Don't try to save every scrap. Focus on what we can carry." But Ethan was already moving toward the burning wreckage, drawn by the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, they could salvage something that would make a difference. He reached the twisted hull and peered inside. Emergency lockers half melted, a medical kit still intact. He grabbed it. The hull groaned. "Ethan!" Ryan's shout cut through the wind. The section collapsed with a shriek of tearing metal. Ethan threw himself backward as a support beam crashed down where he'd been standing a second before. He hit the ice hard, the medical kit clutched to his chest. Ryan appeared above him, eyes blazing. "You stupid, reckless!" She yanked him to his feet. "You could have died for a damn first aid kit. We need supplies. We need you alive." She shoved him, hard enough that he stumbled. "Stop trying to save everything. Stop trying to die like a hero. Just survive." The wind picked up, howling around them. Snow began to fall, not gentle flakes, but hard pellets of ice that stung exposed skin. As they moved through the wreckage toward the shelter, Ethan saw another frozen body. This one still strapped into an escape chair, hands clutching the armrests. The person's eyes were open, staring at nothing, mouth frozen mid-scream. Ethan stopped, unable to look away. Ryan followed his gaze. Her voice was flat when she spoke. "If we stay still long enough, we'll look the same." The words hit like a physical blow. "Come on," she said, already moving. "Storm's getting worse." Ryan's expression shifted. "The storm! It's early." She grabbed his hand and ran. They sprinted through the debris field, the wind clawing at them, trying to tear them apart. The temperature was dropping. Ethan could feel it even through his suit, could see frost forming on Ryan's coat. By the time they reached the shelter, the world had turned white. "We need to..." Ethan's breath fogged inside his helmet. "We need to activate a distress beacon. Send up no orbital traffic for 3 months. Frostgrave 9 is an exclusion zone during storm season. Nobody comes here. Nobody can." She looked up at the sky. "We're on our own until the season changes." 3 months? We'll freeze to death in 3 hours? Yes. She started walking toward the shelter. "That's why we need to move. There's an emergency signal tower 40 kilometers north, pre-colonization relic. If we can reach it and activate it, there's a chance, small but real, that an automated patrol might pick up the signal." 40 kilometers in this? She glanced back at him. "Would you rather die here?" The shelter was barely functional, a section of cargo bay that had landed upright, one wall torn open, emergency lighting flickering weakly. Inside, 2 men huddled around a portable heat cell, the kind meant to warm a single room for a few hours. Ethan recognized them both. Cargo crew. One was Vickers, mid-40s, with a compound fracture in his left tibia that had been hastily splinted with debris. The other was Torres, younger, maybe 30, staring at nothing with eyes too wide and breath coming too fast. Vickers looked up when Ethan and Ryan entered. His face was gray with pain. "We're screwed," he said. No preamble, just fact. "Completely screwed." "There's a signal tower," Ethan said. 40 clicks north. If we... "I can't walk 40 meters, Vickers snarled. "Look at my damn leg. And Torres is catatonic. It's just you and the snow freak." He looked at Ryan with undisguised hatred. This is your planet. You got us into this. You and your cursed people. I was a passenger, same as you, Ryan said quietly. Bullshit. This is sabotage. This whole thing. Someone blew the engine block on purpose. Why would? Because your people want colonists dead. Everyone knows it. You freeze-born freaks hate us for taking your world. Ryan's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, became very still. My people don't sabotage ships. We don't need to. The cold does it for us. Screw you! Ethan stepped between them. Arguing won't keep us alive. We have one heat cell. How long will it last? Vickers laughed, bitter and sharp. 4 hours, maybe 5 if we keep it on minimum. Then we freeze. Then we move in 4 hours. Ryan and I will scout north, find the tower, activate it, and guide a rescue back. You'll die out there. We'll die here if we don't try. Torres suddenly spoke, his voice cracking. We should stay with the wreckage. Protocol says stay with the wreckage. They'll find us. They have to find us. Nobody's coming for 3 months, Ryan said. By then we'll be frozen statues. Torres's breathing got faster. No, we stay here. We stay with the ship. That's the rule. That's what you're supposed to do when you crash. You stay with the ship. He was spiraling. Ethan could see it. The shock giving way to panic, the panic feeding on itself. Torres, Ethan said carefully. Look at me. We're going to... I'm not going out there. Torres scrambled to his feet, backing against the wall. I'm not. You can't make me. Nobody's making you do anything. You want us to leave the heat. You want us to freeze. This is murder. You're going to kill us. Vickers grabbed Torres's arm. Sit the hell down before you. Torres yanked free, eyes wild, and lunged for the heat cell. Ryan moved faster. She caught Torres's wrist mid-reach and twisted, forcing him to his knees with a control hold that looked effortless. Torres struggled for a moment, then went still, breathing hard. Let me go, he whispered. Will you sit down and be quiet? Let me go. She released him. He scrambled back to his corner and curled up, shaking. The shelter fell into tense silence. Ethan looked at the heat cell. 4 hours, maybe 5. Not enough time to reach the tower and get back, which meant if he and Ryan left, Vickers and Torres would die. And if they stayed, everyone would die. We leave in 2 hours, Ethan said. Get what rest you can. Vickers just stared at him with hatred in his eyes. They left at first light, or what passed for light on Frostgrave 9. The sun was a pale disk behind layers of cloud, giving everything a flat, shadowless quality that made distances impossible to judge. Ethan wore every piece of thermal gear they could salvage from the wreckage. 3 layers of insulation, a patchwork pressure suit, boots that were 2 sizes too big and packed with emergency foam. He could barely move. Each step was an exercise in controlled falling. Ryan wore her thermal coat and cargo pants. Nothing else. You'll freeze, Ethan said. No, you will. She pointed at his suit. That's built for station environments. -20, maybe 30 degrees. Anything colder and the joints lock up. The insulation compresses. You'll be fighting your own equipment in less than an hour. What choice do I have? None. She started walking north. Stay close. If you fall behind, I'm not waiting. The landscape was a nightmare of ice and wind. Jagged pressure ridges rose and fell like frozen waves. Crevasses opened without warning, bottomless and blue. The wind came in gusts that knocked Ethan sideways, forcing him to his knees, filling his helmet with the shriek of moving air. Ryan moved through it like a ghost, fluid, efficient, her body adapting to the terrain without apparent effort. She was right about the suit. Within 30 minutes, the joints at Ethan's knees and elbows were starting to stiffen. Within an hour, every step required conscious effort. His HUD flickered, 95 degrees C in error. His breathing sounded wrong, too fast, too shallow. Ryan stopped suddenly. Ethan nearly collided with her. She held up one hand, listening. The wind died for a moment, one of those strange silences that sometimes came in storms. And in that silence, Ethan heard it. A sound. Low, rhythmic, like breathing. What is that? He whispered. Ryan's head tilted, her eyes narrowed. I don't... Something massive moved in the white distance. A shadow. Too big to be human. Too fluid to be debris. They both froze. The shadow circled them just at the edge of visibility. Ethan's hand went to his hip. No weapon, nothing but emergency tools. Then the shadow dove. A creature burst from the snow, wings of ice blue membrane, body the size of a cargo pod, beak lined with crystalline teeth. A frost drake, native to Frostgrave's polar regions, supposedly extinct in the eternal storm zone. Supposedly, it screamed, a sound like wind through broken glass, and banked hard, coming around for another pass. "Down!" Rian shouted. They hit the ice as the drake's talons raked the air where they'd been standing. The wind from its wings knocked Ethan flat. The creature circled again, higher this time, preparing to dive. Ryan grabbed Ethan's arm and hauled him toward a nearby pressure ridge. "Shelter!" "It hunts by thermal signature. If we can get behind the ice..." They scrambled behind the ridge just as the drake hit the ground where they'd been. Its beak struck ice with enough force to shatter it. The creature screamed again, frustrated, then launched itself back into the storm. They waited, pressed against the ice, hardly breathing. Silence. "Is it gone?" Ethan asked. "Maybe, or maybe it's circling." Ryan looked at him. Frost drakes are patient hunters. They can glide for hours, waiting for prey to move. "So we're trapped?" "Until the storm gets worse. Then it'll seek shelter, and we can move." She checked her internal chronometer. 20 minutes, maybe 30. They sat in the meager shelter of the pressure ridge, listening to the wind, watching the white sky for shadows. Footsteps behind them. He turned. A figure stumbled through the snow 50 meters back. No pressure suit, just thermal gear, already caked with ice. Torres. "What the hell is he doing?" Ethan breathed. Ryan's voice was flat. "Following us. Waited until we were out of sight, then ran." "We have to." "No, we can't afford the wait. 3 people means we freeze faster. We can't just leave him." Rian stopped and turned. Her eyes were ice. "On Frostgrave 9, you don't save people who make stupid choices." Torres panicked. Torres ran. "That's on him. He's terrified." "Terror is a choice." Her hand caught his arm. "If you go back for him, I walk away. You make it alone, or you die in the snow." Torres was getting closer, waving, shouting into the wind. Ethan looked at Ryan, at Torres. "We take him to the tower," he said. "If he slows us down too much, we reevaluate." Rian stared at him for a long moment, then released his arm and walked toward Torres without a word. Torres was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. "Can you walk?" I think so. I don't know. I'm so cold." "Then we move. Stay between Ryan and me. Keep your arms moving. Don't stop." They walked. Torres stumbled between them, shaking violently. 2 hours passed. The cold became claws in Ethan's bones. His suit joints ground metal on metal. Torres fell. Ethan hauled him up. "Walk! 1 foot forward! Can't do it or I'll drag you." Another kilometer. Torres's breathing turned ragged, wet. He fell again. This time when Ethan tried to lift him, Torres shoved him away. "Leave me! I'm done!" "We're close. You're lying." Torres laughed, broken. "We're just walking into nothing. We're going to die and nobody will even find our bodies." He curled up in the snow. Ethan looked at Ryan. She shook her head slowly. "He's already gone. Look at him. Stage 3 hypothermia. Even if we reach the tower, his heart will stop in 30 minutes. Torres shivered violently, lips blue, eyes unfocused. Ethan knelt beside him, tried to pull him up one more time. "Come on, just a little farther." Torres's hand caught his wrist, weak, trembling. "Tell my daughter." His voice was barely a whisper. "Tell her I tried. Tell her I didn't just give up. You can tell her yourself." "No." Torres's eyes focused for just a moment, clear, accepting. "No, I can't. But you can. Promise me." Ethan's throat closed up. Ryan's voice cut through, quiet and final. "He already chose his grave." Torres looked up at Ethan one last time. "It's okay, I'm tired. I just want to sleep." "Don't go to sleep." "Torres!" But Torres's eyes were closing. Connor's face flashed through Ethan's mind, eyes wide, mouth forming words. He turned away from Torres, started walking. didn't look back. The wind covered Torres in white. The sun was setting when they saw the tower. It rose from the ice like a skeletal finger, maybe 30 meters tall, built from some dark alloy that had survived decades of storm and cold. Old tech, colonial era. The kind of thing they dropped on hostile worlds before they had the infrastructure to terraform them. But between them and the tower lay a problem. A crevasse, maybe 50 meters across, cutting through the ice field like a wound. The edges were ragged, unstable. Below, nothing but darkness and the sound of wind echoing through infinite depth. No, not just wind. Something else. A low, resonant hum, like the earth itself breathing. Hell, Ethan breathed. Ryan moved to the edge, peering down into the darkness. Her expression shifted, something between fear and recognition. What is that sound? Ethan asked. Not wind. She stepped back from the edge. That's the void under Frostgrave. The ice shelf is only a skin over emptiness. Thousands of meters of nothing. The sound you hear is pressure differential, cold air falling into heat pockets deep below. So we're standing on a shell. We're always standing on a shell here. The ice is never as solid as it looks. She pointed across the gap. There, ice bridges, thin but crossable if we're fast. The bridges were fragile sheets of frozen water spanning the gap at irregular intervals. One wrong step, and they'd plunge into that breathing darkness. Ethan stared into the crevasse. The humming grew louder, or maybe he was just noticing it more. It sounded almost alive, hungry. What happens if we fall? He asked. Ryan didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quiet. On Frostgrave, we have a saying, the void takes you slow. You'd have time to think on the way down, time to regret. Ryan studied the gap with those pale, calculating eyes. There, she pointed to a section where ice bridges had formed, thin sheets of frozen water spanning the gap at irregular intervals. Fragile, deadly. You can't be serious. The tower's on the other side. We can't go around. That would add 15 kilometers. We don't have 15 kilometers in us. She started pulling rope from her pack. We cross here or we die trying. Those bridges won't hold. They'll hold if we're fast. She tied one end of the rope around her waist, threw the other end to Ethan. Tie on. If I fall, you anchor. If you fall, I pull you up. And if we both fall? She smiled, sharp and cold. Then the argument's over. Ryan went first, stepping onto the ice bridge with the confidence of someone who'd crossed 1,000 such gaps. The ice groaned under her weight but held. She moved quickly, efficiently, each step deliberate. Halfway across, the bridge cracked. Not a break, just a sound. A warning. Ryan froze. Don't move. Don't breathe heavy. Just wait. The ice settled. She took another step. The crack widened. Ryan! Shut up, I'm thinking. She looked ahead, calculating. 3 more steps to solid ground. The ice will hold for 2. On the 3rd, it breaks. Then don't take the 3rd step. I have to. There's no other way across. She looked back at him, and her expression was almost gentle. When it breaks, don't try to catch me. Let the rope pull tight, then haul me up. Understand? Wait. She took the 3rd step. The ice shattered like glass. Ryan dropped into the crevasse with a shout that was cut off as the rope snapped tight. Ethan felt the impact jolt through his whole body, nearly pulling him off his feet. He dropped to his knees, digging his boots into the ice, wrapping the rope around his arms. Below, Ryan dangled over the void, spinning slowly. Pull! She shouted. Before the edge gives! Ethan pulled. His ribs screamed. His twisted leg felt like it was tearing apart. But he pulled, hand over hand, dragging her up inch by inch. The ice edge started to crumble. Faster! Ryan's voice was sharp with real fear now. It's going! Ethan roared and heaved with everything he had. Ryan's hand appeared over the edge, then her arm. She grabbed hold and pulled herself up, rolling onto solid ice just as the section she'd been hanging from broke away and fell into darkness. They lay there for a moment, breathing hard. You stupid, reckless, Ethan started. I know. She was shaking, actually shaking. I know, but we're across. You could have died. Yes. She sat up, looking at him with those pale eyes. But you didn't let me. You pulled me up. Even though your ribs are broken and your legs shredded, and you should have let the rope go to save yourself? She touched his face with one cold hand. Why? Because Ethan stopped. Because no one should die alone. That's a terrible reason. It's the only one I have. Ryan stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something completely unexpected. She laughed. Not a bitter laugh or a mocking laugh. A real laugh. Full and honest and surprised. You're such a fool, she said. But there was warmth in it now. Such a beautiful, stupid fool. She stood and offered him her hand. Together they walked toward the tower. They climbed the tower's interior shaft. Frozen ladder rungs, each movement agony. Ethan's suit was nearly locked solid. Halfway up, his grip slipped. He fell backward, arms windmilling. Ryan's hand shot down, caught his wrist. Not his hand. His wrist. Her fingers locked around it like a vice, knuckles white with strain. The impact jolted through both of them. Ethan heard the ice on her glove crack, tiny fractures spreading across the thermal material. Felt her whole body brace against the ladder to hold his weight. For a moment they hung there, suspended, him dangling, her holding on with everything she had. Her face was inches from his, eyes blazing with fierce determination. I said, don't die yet, she snarled through clenched teeth. I'm slipping. No, you're not. Her grip tightened impossibly harder. I've got you. I've got you. Now climb. She pulled. He scrambled for purchase. His boots found a rung, then another. Together they hauled him back to the ladder, both breathing hard. Ryan didn't let go of his wrist until he was stable. Thank you, he gasped. Don't thank me. But her voice was shaking. Just don't fall again. I can't. She stopped. I still need you. They kept climbing. The control room was small, hexagonal, frost-covered. Ancient consoles flickered when Ryan touched them. In the center, a cylindrical reactor hummed with faint blue light. Still active. Ryan moved to the console, fingers flying. Beacon systems intact, but the reactor's at 15%. I can boost it to full power and activate the distress signal, but what? It'll burn out the reactor. 6 hours of broadcast and heat, then nothing. 6 hours should be enough. Should be, if there's a patrol in range, if they respond, if everything goes right. She looked at him. Or we don't activate it. Conserve the reactor. Survive here for weeks. Maybe wait out the storm season. On what? We have no food. We have ice. Melt it. Fast for food. I've done 30 days before. She touched the console. But if we activate the beacon and nobody comes, then we die in 6 hours instead of 30 days. Ethan moved closer. Torres is dead because we couldn't save him. Vickers is probably dead. If there's any chance of getting rescue, we take it. Even if it kills us? Especially if it kills us. Because I'm done running. Done making the safe choice that gets people killed. If we die trying to save ourselves, at least we die trying. Something shifted in Rian's expression. Maybe respect. You're a fool, she said. Yeah, probably. She pressed the sequence. The reactor surged. Deep, resonant hum. Heat flooded the room. The displays brightened. An automated voice spoke. Emergency beacon activated. Broadcasting all standard frequencies. Range, 40,000 kilometers. Duration, 6 hours, 20 minutes. Please remain near tower for extraction. Rian leaned against the console. For the first time since the crash, she looked tired. 6 hours, she said quietly. 6 hours. Outside wind screamed against the tower. The storm was building. Not the constant wind they'd walk through, but a storm. A wall of ice and fury that hit the structure hard enough to make it sway. The windows went opaque with driven snow. Temperature inside the room began dropping despite the reactor's heat. 10 degrees in 10 seconds. It's failing, Ryan said, voice cutting through the howl. Cooling system can't handle the external differential. We're losing it. How long? 20 minutes, maybe 30. 2 hours and 41 minutes on the beacon display. Not enough time. Ethan looked at Ryan, standing at the console, hands moving over dying controls with focused intensity. She was going to die here, on her own world, in the frozen hell she'd spent her life learning to survive, because she'd chosen to help a stranger. Ryan, he said, if you're about to thank me, don't. I was going to say I'm sorry. For what? For dragging you into this. For making you come. Stop! She looked at him fierce. You didn't drag me anywhere. I could have stayed at the crash site. I chose to come with you. I chose to try. Why? She was quiet, still working. Because you reminded me that trying is better than giving up. That dying on your feet beats freezing on your knees. She smiled, small and sharp. You were a fool for Torres. A fool for this beacon. A fool for every compassionate choice you made. But I'd rather die with a fool who tries than survive with someone who doesn't. The reactor's whine became a shriek. Lights died. Emergency lighting kicked in. Dim, red, failing. Temperature plummeted. 30 degrees C. Then 40 degrees C. Ryan abandoned the console, moved to where Ethan stood. Outside, the storm was solid white. No visibility, nothing but screaming dark. 50 degrees C. Ethan's breath fogged. His hands shook. Not fear, but cold. Come here, Ryan said. She pulled him to the floor, away from the window. Found an emergency thermal blanket in a locker, thin, metallic, wrapped it around them both. 60 degrees C. They huddled together, sharing heat, the blanket doing almost nothing. Core temperature dropping, thoughts sluggish, vision tunneling. Talk to me, Ryan said. Steady voice, but she was shivering. Stay awake. Sleep now and you won't wake up. What should I... Anything. Tell me about your home. Earth, southern coast, small town by the ocean. Each word an effort. Used to watch sunrise over water. Warm, gentle. Nothing like this. Sounds nice. It was. Should have appreciated it. 70 degrees C. Violent shaking, teeth chattering, muscles cramping. Ryan pressed closer, ice-cold hands finding his under the blanket. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what? For being wrong about the beacon, about survival. She stopped, breath hitching. I told you mercy was a luxury, compassion was waste, but you showed me something different. That trying to save people, even when it's futile, even when it kills you, maybe that's the only thing that makes us more than animals. 80 degrees, vision fading, heartbeat slowing. This was it, how it ended. Not in a burning ship, not running. Here, in frozen dark, with someone who understood. Ryan, he forced through numb lips. I'm glad I met you. Don't, fierce. Don't say goodbye, not yet. I'm so cold. I know, me too. She was lying. He felt her body temperature dropping, ice crystallizing in her veins. They were both dying. 99 degrees C. Emergency lights failed. Complete darkness. Just wind and ragged breathing, and the beacon still pulsing somewhere in the black. Ryan's hand tightened on his. No one should die alone, he whispered. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder. Then we won't, she said. They held each other. Two people from different worlds, bound by impossible choices and shared warmth in a place designed to kill them. Vision gray, then white, then light. Bright, searing, artificial light cutting through darkness. Voices, shouting orders, calling for medical equipment, emergency responders doing their jobs. Ethan tried to open his eyes, but his eyelids were frozen shut. Hands grabbed him, pulled him from Ryan's grip. He tried to hold on, but his fingers wouldn't work. Two survivors, core temps critical. Get them to the shuttle now. Movement, being lifted. Artificial heat flooding over him, almost painful after the killing cold. He forced his eyes open a crack. Rescue shuttle. Medical equipment. Emergency heaters. 3 people in thermal suits working frantically. The beacon. Someone had heard it. He tried to speak, but no sound came. A medic leaned over him. Don't try to talk. Severe hypothermia. We're bringing your core temp up slowly. You're going to be okay. Darkness pulled at him again. Gentle this time. Warm instead of killing. He let it take him. He woke 3 days later in a medical facility in Frostgrave 9's habitable zone. Warm, clean, antiseptic and recycled air. Ribs bandaged, leg in a stabilization cast. Hands wrapped in treatment gel for frostbite. But alive. A doctor ran tests, declared him incredibly lucky. Another 10 minutes and you would have been gone. The patrol ship picked up your beacon at extreme range. They almost didn't respond. Automated distress calls in the storm region are usually malfunctioning equipment, but the duty officer decided to check. She shook her head. You don't know how rare that is. The other survivor, Ethan croaked. The woman with me. Is she alive? Recovering in the next ward. Her physiology handles extreme cold better, but even she was close to the edge. The doctor paused. She's been asking about you. Can I see her? Tomorrow. Rest first. But Ethan couldn't rest. Couldn't stop thinking about Ryan's hand in his, her voice in the dark, the way she'd held on when letting go would have been easier. He drifted in medicated sleep, dreaming of ice and wind and pale gray eyes. They brought him to her the next morning. She sat up in her hospital bed, uncomfortable in the climate-controlled environment. Her blue skin had lost its deathly pallor. Her eyes were clear. She looked at him as he was wheeled in. Something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe. You're alive, she said. So are you. Apparently stubbornness works. Ethan laughed. It hurt his ribs, but felt good. The doctor said another 10 minutes. I know, I've been calculating. We activated the beacon with just enough time. Any later, and the patrol wouldn't have reached us. Any earlier, and the reactor would have failed before they arrived. She shook her head. Impossibly lucky. Or maybe we made the right choice. Maybe. She looked at her hands. Vickers and Torres are dead. I confirmed it. Crash site was searched. Torres froze where we left him. Vickers tried to walk out after the heat cell died. Made it about 500 meters? Ethan felt guilt settle on his chest. 2 more dead. 2 more. Stop, Ryan said sharply. I can see it. You're blaming yourself. Don't. We left them. We gave them a choice. Come with us or stay. Torres came and couldn't handle it. Vickers stayed and died anyway. Neither is your fault. She met his eyes. You tried to save everyone. Almost killed yourself trying. That's more than most would do. It wasn't enough. It never is. But you tried. You didn't give up. You fought for every meter, every minute. And you won. We won. At what cost? Does it matter? Fierce. We're alive. That's everything. And we're alive because you refused to quit. She smiled, small, sharp. You were a fool, but a brave fool, and I'm grateful. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning. What will you do now, he asked. Ryan shrugged. Go home, back to the equatorial zone. Hunting, my clan. She paused. What about you? I don't know. I left Earth to run. Left everything. I don't know if I can go back. Then don't go back. She leaned forward. Go forward. Find something new. Stop running from the past and start walking toward a future. Her eyes burned. You have a second chance, Ethan. Don't waste it on guilt. I don't know if I can. You can. You just have to choose it. Same way you chose to activate that beacon. The words settled into him, heavy and warm. He nodded slowly. Thank you, he said. She waved dismissively. Don't thank me. I'm just telling you what you already know. A nurse came to take Ethan back. As they wheeled him toward the door, Ryan called after him. Ethan! He looked back. She was smiling, genuine this time, almost tender. You're not a coward, she said. You never were. 6 months later, Ethan stood at a transit station on Frostgrave 9's edge, waiting for a shuttle to the orbital platform. He'd spent recovery time thinking, processing, working through guilt and pain and impossible choices. He still saw Connor's face sometimes, still felt the weight of that 5-second decision. But Rian was right. The dead didn't care about his guilt. They were gone. He was the one who had to keep living. And maybe he could do that without running. A figure approached through the crowd, blue skin, gray eyes, small pack over one shoulder. Ryan. What are you doing here? Ethan asked, surprised. She shrugged. Changed my mind about going home. Realized I've spent my whole life in one place. Maybe it's time to see what else is out there. She looked at him. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed doing something compassionate and stupid. I thought mercy was a luxury. It is. She smiled. But maybe I'm learning to afford it. The shuttle boarding call echoed. Ethan picked up his bag, looked at Ryan, felt something like hope kindle in his chest. Where should we go? He asked. She thought for a moment. Somewhere warm. I've had enough cold for a lifetime. Somewhere warm it is. They walked toward the shuttle together, two survivors who'd chosen life over death, movement over stasis, trying over giving up. Behind them, Frostgrave 9 turned in its lonely orbit, the eternal storm region still howling its song of ice and death. But they weren't listening anymore. They were moving forward. 1 year later, Ethan stood on a beach on Kepler 442b, watching sunrise paint the ocean gold and amber. Warm air, soft sand, gentle waves. Ryan sat beside him, her blue skin almost luminous in early light. She'd adapted well to warm climate, though she still preferred nights. Behind them, the SAR base sat on a low hill, prefab modules and landing pads, rescue shuttles lined up like sleeping birds. The sign over the main building read, Frontier Search and Rescue, Hostile Environment Response Team. Their purpose. Tell me again why you wanted to come here, Ryan said. Because it reminds me of home. The good parts anyway. And the bad parts? I'm working on letting those go. She nodded, understanding. A figure approached from the base. Martinez, their comm officer. Got a distress call. Mining colony on Titan's Edge. Structural collapse. 15 people trapped. Ethan stood, brushing sand from his pants. How long do we have? 6 hours before their oxygen runs out. Ryan stood too, but her expression had shifted. Not worried exactly, but alert. What else? Martinez hesitated. The colony's deep, 2 kilometers under the surface. They're reporting anomalous readings, thermal signatures that don't match any known equipment. What kind of thermal signatures? Ryan asked. The kind that move. Ethan and Ryan exchanged a look. They'd both learned the hard way that rescue missions could turn into something else very quickly. Then we leave in 5 minutes, Ethan said. Full hostile environment protocols. As Martinez headed back to prep the shuttle, Ryan paused, reached down and picked up a handful of warm sand, letting it run through her fingers. Strange, she said quietly. What is? On Frostgrave, I spent my whole life fighting to survive, fighting the cold, the hunger, the endless winter. I thought that was strength. She looked at the sand in her palm. But this, helping people, saving lives, choosing to try even when it's hard, this is harder than anything I ever did on the ice. This takes real strength. You think so? I know so. She scattered the sand and looked at him. You taught me that. The warm world fool who jumped into freezing hell to save people who might already be gone, who activated a beacon that could have killed us both, who pulled me out of a crevasse when you should have let me fall. You would have done the same for me. No. She was quiet for a moment. The old me wouldn't have. The hunter who walked alone, who let the weak fall, who survived by being cold. She would have cut the rope and kept walking. She touched his hand. But you changed that. You showed me that the warmth worth keeping isn't the kind that comes from heat cells and emergency blankets. It's the kind you share. They reached the base. Martinez was already prepping the shuttle, running pre-flight checks. Other team members were loading rescue equipment. Ethan paused at the entrance, looking back at the ocean, at the sunrise, at the world that had become their home. He still saw Connor's face sometimes, still heard that final shout, "Go! Ethan, go!" Still felt the weight of that choice, but he understood now what Connor had been trying to tell him in those last seconds. Not run away, go forward, live, choose, try, make the survival mean something. Ryan touched his shoulder. You coming? Yeah. He turned away from the sunrise and toward the waiting shuttle, toward the crisis, toward the people who needed help. Let's go save some lives. Inside the shuttle, as they strapped in and the engines hummed to life, Ryan checked her equipment with focused intensity. The knife at her belt, the rope, the thermal sensors, all the tools that had kept them alive on Frostgrave, but now turned towards saving others instead of just saving herself. Martinez's voice crackled over the comm. ETA to Titan's Edge, 4 hours, rescue window, 6 hours from now. Those thermal signatures are getting stronger. Ryan looked across at Ethan. In her eyes, he saw the same thing he felt. Anticipation mixed with purpose. They'd nearly died together on a frozen world. They'd learned what it meant to choose life over death, trying over giving up. And now they carried that lesson forward. A soft chime from the base's emergency system. Martinez's voice came through again, quieter this time. Hold on. Getting another signal. Long-range distress beacon, automated. Old frequency. Ethan and Ryan exchanged a look. Location? Ryan asked. Deep frontier, beyond the last mapped colonies. Whoever sent it, they're running? Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Not fear, recognition. Like I was, he said quietly. Ryan nodded. Her hand found his across the shuttle's narrow aisle. Someone else running the wrong direction. Then we find them, Ethan said. After Titan's Edge. We bring them back. Or teach them to turn around. Ryan smiled, sharp and warm at once. Show them that real warmth is the one you share. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the warm beach behind, carrying them toward cold and danger and unknown threats. Martinez's voice crackled one more time. One more thing. The colony mentioned, they think something's hunting them down there. Ryan's smile turned dangerous. Alive. Good. Then they'll need a hunter. She looked at Ethan, and in her eyes was everything they'd survived, everything they'd learned, everything they'd become. The engines roared. The shuttle climbed into the sky, and somewhere out in the dark frontier, someone was running from their past, just like Ethan had run. But they wouldn't run forever, because he'd traveled to the edge of the universe to freeze alone, and she'd taught him that real warmth is the one you share. Even in the dark, even in the cold, even when something's hunting you, and even when someone else needs to learn the same lesson.